Welcome, everybody. I am so happy and excited to introduce Lauren-Faye Millingham, who is our return to work coach. She's part of the ReechUs family, and she is there to make sure that employees that have just been on maternity leave feel confident and excited to come back to work. Lauren-Faye, thank you so much for chatting to me.
Thanks, Jamie. Thank you for the lovely introduction as well. Super excited to be working with ReechUs. My name's Lauren, as Jamie said. I've worked in HR for the last sort of 10 to 12 years now, and sort of worked my way up through to director role, where I was working in my last position for 5 years. And I love working with people. And I think being in HR, you always want to look at how you can improve the work environment, the culture. And one thing I think that always stuck out to me was what businesses could do better to support parents coming back to work. And then I got pregnant myself. And actually all of those things that you think you might know about what parents go through when they're expecting a baby and then have a baby is, once you're in it, it's a whole different ball game. I think the emotions and everything that come with it. So I went on maternity leave, had a little girl. She's the apple of my eye. She's beautiful. So she's 16 months nearly. It just flies by. Yeah. So
it goes in the blink of an eye, doesn't it?
I know. She's a little pocket rocket. She definitely keeps me on my toes.
I bet. Wow.
Yeah, she's wonderful. And so I think after having her, that need to want to do more for parents coming back from work just like grew massively. So I'm a qualified coach anyway. I trained to be a coach a few years ago. So I got my ACC qualification 3 years ago, and just really wanted to focus on supporting parents coming back into the workplace. So decided to take the leap and not go back into employment after my maternity leave. And then I started Sanctuary Tribe, which is a business around supporting new parents back to work. And that's what brought me to and supporting these guys on the incredible mission to just promote well-being and a better workplace.
Amazing. So tell me a little bit about what you noticed in regards to the anxiety and I guess the feeling of a new mother who was approaching that time coming back to work. What is it that they were experiencing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things is when you go on maternity leave, I think a lot of businesses just think that mums don't want to be contacted for that year. And actually, that's not always the case. And I think you have a year away from work where you go from answering emails and having intellectual conversations or just being around adults a lot to spending a year of, you might be going to lots of coffee shops and things, but ultimately you're cooing at your baby for, 6 months to a year, however long you take off. And that feeling of adjusting back into the sort of busy, rat race of work, really. And on top of that, then having to juggle up bringing up a small child it's a lot. And I think there's lots of anxiety around the guilt that you feel about putting them in nursery potentially, how you're going to juggle everything, if they get sick, because they're sick a lot when they go to nursery and when they start school. So yeah, I think it's just that feeling of how am I going to adjust to this new way of being, because your world changes once you have a baby. It's not that you have maternity leave and then you go back and everything's the same. It's not. It's different, and that's not a bad thing. But it's just how do you adjust to this new life that you have, where you're able to be really present as a parent and also be present as a professional.
I totally see this. So it's almost like your identity changes. And
Absolutely.
You have a year off, right, becoming this new person. And then suddenly you have to go, I have to go back to being the previous person that everyone expected me to be. And along with that must come some serious levels of stress, anxiety, and worry. It's no wonder that so many women go back to work after maternity leave, experiencing all of those things, all of those negative feelings.
Absolutely. And that's not to mention even the financial, worry, because there's so many aspects. Everybody is different. But nursery fees are really expensive. You might be going back to work part-time. There's so many different aspects. So yeah, it's tough. And I think at the end of the day, you've hit the nail on the head, Jamie. You do go through a change of identity. And I think sometimes that can feel like, a bit like an identity crisis, like, who am I anymore? Because when you go back to work, you're not the person that you were when you left a year ago. So the work that I do is helping people get used to that new way of being, that new person that, can absolutely thrive as being a parent and thrive in their career as well. It doesn't have to be a choice.
Got it. Okay. And can you kind of talk us through the process of how you help temper some of that anxiety and stress and make sure that person feels maybe not very confident about coming back, but feels comfortable coming back to work?
Yeah, absolutely. So my approach is quite flexible in terms of when people want to book their sessions, but as a sort of standard and something that a lot of parents choose to sort of go with is an initial coaching session about a month before they're due to come back from parental leave. And that's usually to unpick how the last 6 months or year or however long it's been has been for them, and understand what their anxieties are about going back to work. And then we'll catch up. There'll be sort of some mindfulness exercises and things that they can take away with them after the first session. And then we catch up just before they're due to go back to work to see whether any of those anxieties have, decreased, or actually they may have increased. So there may be other worries. They may have had an interaction with a new manager or something that's changed whilst they've been off, or there's, lots of things that can sort of help, that can add to that feeling of uncertainty. So it's really, the second session is really gearing them up for, you're going back to work in a week's time. What are the things that get you set up in the best way? And then we catch up about a week or 2 weeks after they've been back, because that, again, they could be in a whole different space by then. And then I like to do a final session, which is usually a month to 6 weeks after they've been back to work, which is more focused around sort of future success. So they've kind of got over the initial hurdle of going back to work. They know what to expect now. They kind of get into grips with the workload and everything that sort of goes around with being back. So we look on what future success looks like for them. What do they want to achieve now that they're sort of back into work? And the tools to make sure that they can almost self-coach, so that if they do have feelings of, oh my God, I can't do this, or this is just too much, or if they've got lots of things that need to juggle, then it's sort of giving them the tools to be able to manage all of that moving forward.
I guess you've highlighted an important point, because it isn't just the transition back to work; it's the transition back to work as a mother, which is totally different, right? There are things that still need to be worked on. So I totally see the value in this, and for me, it makes complete sense for an organization to invest in what is a relatively small amount for having a valuable asset, which is this employee that could have been at the organization for a long time, coming back feeling confident. And as you said, having an outlook on what's next, and knowing that they are still an asset and they still have a career ahead of them. So I think it's absolutely amazing. Could you share some of the experiences that some of the employees, without naming names, obviously, but some of the employees that you've helped have had, what some of the feedback they've had from this process?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind actually is building confidence. And actually that confidence building has been around sort of having, I don't want to say difficult, but like challenging conversations. So if they've come back to work and they're not happy with something, I think when you've spent a year off, let's say for argument's sake that the employee has taken a year, you've not been in an environment where you even really need to have those conversations with maybe a manager or another co-worker. But it's kind of building that confidence of how to almost set your own boundaries and be able to be able to articulate yourself confidently, because when you haven't done that for so long, you can get into your own, like a lot of employees get into their own heads. And I think that's the biggest theme that I find with the people that I work with, is that lack of confidence of, am I doing this correctly? Am I saying this in the best way? Or, you know, my mind used to work so much better than it does now. But that confidence is such a blocker for people. So it's just breaking that down. And that's been the biggest thing, I think. And there's a couple of other, I would say that's probably the biggest thing, is breaking down, sort of building up that confidence and sort of breaking down the limiting beliefs that a lot of mothers can put on themselves when they've been out of work for a while.
I mean, it makes total sense to me. I think that when we're talking about this particular subject, I think organizations, especially those in HR, whenever I talk about this particular subject, they always light up, because it is an issue and it is a concern for them. We've got someone on maternity leave. Will they come back? Will they feel confident? Will they feel comfortable? And I guess their problem is, what can we offer them? And I guess the reason that this really sticks out in my mind is because it's contextual, and it's relevant to the individual. And I think that's the absolute key. Like you said, every single new mother is going through a different experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And every business is different as well. And I think the amazing thing with offering coaching is, you know, some businesses can offer really amazing flexibility, or you know, various different benefits to employees returning for work. Other businesses can't. And I think the nice thing about coaching is that it is, you know, it's something that is accessible for any business, because it is completely adaptable to the employee. You know, some mums can't wait to get back to work, and then they're battling with that guilt, because they're like, oh, I can't wait to almost get back to the thing I was doing before. And then you're battling with that guilt of, you know, should I feel this way because I'm a mum now, and shouldn't my baby be my whole world? Which, you know, it's just not the case. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Whereas other mums, you know, go back to work and just, you know, feel like they've lost their right arm, you know, because they've been with their baby for so long, day in, day out. So there's lots of different emotions and different feelings that come from so many different people. Everyone experiences it differently. And what's great about coaching is it's people led. So I don't lead the sessions. It's led by what they come to me with, really. And then I've got the tools to sort of help them work through that in a way that, like I said before, they feel like they can really thrive at their jobs. And I think the biggest bit of feedback, which is really positive, is that the employees feel like their employer really cares, which is a big thing, I think, that you can often feel when you go back to work, particularly if you work in an organisation where there's maybe not a lot of parents that work with you. You can just sometimes feel like, oh, do they really care? You know, are they just expecting me to jump in and just do everything as I did normally, which, you know, they will get there. But, you know, there is a little bit of, there is support that's needed because they've gone through the biggest change of their life. So, that feeling of support is, I mean, I get that from pretty much every single employee that I work with. And it's, you know, it's a lovely feeling to know that businesses are investing in the right way.
Absolutely. I mean, I told you this before we had this conversation, but when I speak to HR managers and people directors and those types of roles about our program, and I bring you up, as we've got this amazing person, we've got Lauren, she helps new mothers with their transition back to work. A lot of those people are mothers who were not offered that support. And instantly you can see that little light bulb go off in their head, and they think, what an incredible service that is, and what I would have given to have had that level of coaching and support from my employer back when I was going through this. So, you know, for me, it's a new idea for me, but it makes total sense, like complete sense, right? So I'm so glad that we get to offer what you do as part of our program. I think you bring incredible amounts of value to anyone that you interact with. You're also wonderful. So it's just so
Thank
nice
you.
to be affiliated with you and have you as part of the program. So thanks for coming on and talking a little bit about what you do and why you do it. It's been really, really helpful.
Oh, thanks so much, Jamie. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to continue working with you guys.
My pleasure. Thanks, Lauren.